This morning, our very special guest is Cristabelle Braden. She is here with Hope Survives. Good morning to you, Cristabelle.
Good morning, Fred. Thank you for having me.
I love having you here. Anybody you want to say hi to this morning?
I want to say hi to my husband, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
You might know as Mike behind the mic.
That's pretty exciting. Now, how long ago was it that you were here with your mom, the very first time that you told us all about your testimony?
Yeah, it was over 10 years ago. And yeah, hi to my mom as well.
Amazing. And then you've performed at Sertoma Chicken Barbecue for us and other various events throughout the year.
Yeah, it's been such a blessing to be connected with you guys. So thank you.
Love it. March is Brain Injury Awareness Month, so it's perfect that you're here. Tell us a little bit about your story and why this is so important to you.
Sure. So I had a pretty serious traumatic brain injury when I was a teenager. I had to relearn everything, like getting dressed, taking a shower, the right side of my body atrophied. I struggled with word finding, short-term memory loss, cognition, pretty much everything your brain controls. But in that process is when I started to write music. I never wrote a song before my brain injury. And so the Lord just really opened up this music, and music affects the brain in a way that nothing else really does.
Right.
And so that kind of led me down the journey towards being a singer-songwriter.
Amazing. Coming out of that brain injury and coming out of that into music, how did music help you express yourself and express what you were going through?
Well, I really struggled with aphasia, which is a word-finding difficulty, as well as I had some frontal lobe damage. And I would get really overwhelmed, so I couldn't express myself very well in conversation. But for some reason, in music, things just clicked. I could write songs that rhymed and made sense, even though I couldn't express the same things in words. And that's really how it began, just writing like hundreds of songs of just how I was feeling at the time. And it eventually led into writing and recording albums in Nashville and touring nationally.
How many albums do you have out now?
I have 4, I believe, plus Christmas.
Nice.
Christmas, 4 originals.
That counts.
Yeah,
Great.
That counts. That's awesome. And I have to say, the song that you wrote for Mike at your wedding and performed at your wedding is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. I don't know how you got through it because emotionally, I was emotional.
He
being
tells me
there
about it all the time.
Yeah.
Because Liam and I and Kayla are all getting married, and he's just like, but this moment at that wedding was just amazing, and I don't know how she did it.
And you surprised
Wow,
him. He didn't know it, right?
Yeah, I did. I kept it off the timelines, off everything. I told our officiant in like secret it was only verbal, but I've never recorded that song yet, so maybe I should.
Yes,
Well, you should
please.
because it's gorgeous, and
Thank you.
I think your ability to share the emotion that you had in it, really came out. Thought it
Thank
was
you so
really
much.
great.
I mean, songwriting's how I process the world. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to, it's hard to express, how you feel about, anything, especially like my husband, my new husband.
Right.
So writing music is really, where the Lord has moved in my heart.
So you originally had started Hope after head injury, right? And that's kind of transisted into Hope Survives?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that and your thought behind that.
Sure. So over 10 years ago, I started a online brain injury support group. And that eventually led into it started as a social media page. It eventually led into doing support groups, into doing online Bible studies. And now this year we launched a nonprofit organization called Hope Survives. So it's been very slow, intentional steps towards this nonprofit.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to have officially launched this month.
That's awesome. You're available for doing singing, for speaking, for sharing your testimony. Is that something folks could connect with you about?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love speaking. I've done a lot of like women's retreats and conferences. I have my master's in theology and I'm working on a book proposal right now.
Oh, nice.
And so really just,
that's
my heart is
exciting.
to share the faithfulness of God through everything. And so, I do concerts and speaking and really whatever.
Does Hope Survive have a website?
We do, yeah. So there's kind of, I have a music ministry,
Right.
Which is CristabelleBraden.com.
Right.
And then I have a nonprofit organization for brain injury that I founded, that we have a team, that's hopesurvives.org.
So can they contact you through either of those?
Absolutely. HopeSurvives.org. We have a lot of online brain injury resources. We have support groups for families, caregivers, survivors, and Bible studies for brain injury survivors as well. And just bringing hope and encouragement. We just don't want anyone to feel alone.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to talk more with Cristabelle. She has a song that's called Hope Survives as well, and we're going to play that a little bit later on, so stick around. Our very special guest today is the founder and executive director of Hope Survives. She's also our friend, Cristabelle Braden. Good morning, Cristabelle.
Good morning.
So wonderful to have you here. Do you have a life verse that you like to share?
I do. It's Psalm 73:26. And it's my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever.
That's so appropriate, especially with you having going through a traumatic brain injury and having to relearn everything. And that's why you started Hope Survives. Tell us a little bit about that vision behind that and what your mission is with Hope Survives.
Sure. Yeah. So I suffered a traumatic brain injury when I was a teenager, and I had to relearn kind of everything. And our family felt really alone. I had started writing music through the journey and eventually led to sharing songs and doing concerts and events. But I also started a brain injury support group online, and that eventually led to doing a podcast, led to doing Hope Survives. And so our vision is that every brain injury survivor and every member of their family are seen and heard and loved and valued, supported, uplifted, and never alone. We don't want anyone to feel as alone as we did. And it's really important for us that the family is included, that the whole family goes on the journey.
Because your family went through it together.
Yes. Yeah. And whether people have had a concussion from sports or from a car accident, or there are acquired non-traumatic brain injuries from things like oxygen deprivations or surviving an overdose, or, surgeries and anoxic brain injuries. There are also strokes, and there's a whole wide range of brain injury. And our heart and mission is to support every survivor and family that is going through this to have the tools, the resources, the help, and the encouragement and support that they need.
So if somebody's listening and they've experienced that, or their a family member has experienced that, or a friend or a loved one, can they go to your website to get those resources?
Absolutely. HopeSurvives.org. We've officially launched as of this month. After over 10 years of already doing it, we finally made it official. It's been a journey. I'm so grateful to the Lord's faithfulness in all of that.
I love that. Let's talk about the podcast a little bit. What do you talk about on the podcast?
We interview survivors and family members, as well as mostly it's actually professionals that work in the field of brain injury, on new research on the way that brain injury rehabilitation has changed and grown over the years. When I first had my injury, the research was completely different. The concussion protocol has actually changed now.
Right.
And so I'm trying to help people to know that there actually is help and hope and healing out there for brain injury.
Yeah, that's great. Where can they find your podcast?
Anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's also on hopesurvives.org.
Okay, so they can find it at
Yes.
hopesurvives.org. That's probably the easiest place. Or if they listen on Spotify or Apple or whatever, they just type in Hope Survives.
Yep.
That's wonderful. You've written this song. It's also called Hope Survives, but you told me that you wrote it like 10, 12 years ago, because you actually performed it at Sertoma Chicken Barbecue when we were there and had our stage there.
Yes, I wrote the song. The song came before the organization, actually. I wrote the song, and I did a national tour, Hope Survives tour, in 2017.
Yeah.
And that was one of my first albums that I recorded and released, was called Hope Survives. And I never would have known that it would eventually lead to starting a nonprofit with the same name.
I love that. How did it get from song to nonprofit?
Well, the song kind of became this anthem for brain injury survivors, and people would tell me how much the song meant to them. So when I started my podcast, I said, well, I think I'm going to name it Hope Survives.
Yeah.
And then once the podcast was named that, I thought, well, we're going to start this nonprofit. It seems like a great name for the nonprofit also. And
I love that.
People already associated it with, the brain injury support and with my music. And so we just took the next step with it.
I love that. I often think back to when you were here with your mom the very first time. How old were you?
I was 19.
19.
Yeah.
Amazing. And it's an amazing story. And I've loved seeing your story progress. And I just want to encourage folks, Cristabelle is a fantastic artist, great speaker. You could check out CristabelleBraden.com if you'd like to have her come to your event. You speak at a lot of events. You sing at a lot of events. So that would be where they could get in touch with you to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Or at hopesurvives.org. Our email's easy, hi@hopesurvives.org.
hi@hopesurvives.org. I love that. So we're going to play Hope Survives. You want to tell us a little bit about just maybe the recording of the song, times that you have performed it, how special it is, and then we're going to play it for our listeners.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking that. When I first recorded it, I actually self-recorded it, and I released just this self-made demo in 2015, and people just started sharing it. So eventually did an album in 2017. I went to the studio in Nashville. My producer's name is Stephen Lawicki, and I've been producing my albums with him for the last number of years. And we re-recorded a new version of Hope Survives very recently.
Love it.
That's become our podcast theme song, and that's the version we're going to play today. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank
it's
you so much.
It's wonderful having you and Mike
me.
both here today. And we're going to go into Hope Survives. This is Cristabelle Braden, Hope Survives on WJTL.